This here is Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, and if you didn't know that, then I'm sorry about your disappointing childhood. This game came out for the GameCube in 2002 following the movie Godzilla 2000 and was re-released for the original Xbox a year later. Developed by Pipeworks Software, this game brought the cheesy monster fight mayhem of the classic Godzilla films to life in glorious fashion. As a fighting game, it's unbalanced, absurd, and chaotic, but boy is it fun. Tap that follow button and I'll walk you through the whack-ass cast of this classic, shitty fighting game. I'd like to point out up front that I'm specifically playing the American GameCube version of this game, so I'll be omitting Kiryu. Kiryu, or MechaGodzilla 3, was a Japanese exclusive on the GameCube, replacing our version of MechaGodzilla on the roster. Both are available on the Xbox version, though, and he is distinct from MechaGodzilla 2, ours, in a few ways, including his stats and some normals. But since he isn't in this version, I don't have access to him at the moment. So we'll skip him for now and maybe revisit him some other time in like a distinct video about him, since he's kind of a unique case. But yeah, so let's get into the roster. Meet Godzilla 90s. This here is your basic all-rounder character. In this game, everyone has projectiles, kind of like in DBFZ, so divining zoners is a bit hard, but Godzilla's beam is good enough, and he also has a pretty strong fireball. Where he shines, though, is in his buttons. His kicks and punches are fine, but his tail moves using the X button on GameCube are godlike. Some notables are his tail sweep with 2X, turnaround with 4X, and slow but strong 360 tail with 8X. His 6B charge is also great, ignoring weaker beam charges for a knockdown, and his 4B dropkick high profiles, which is nice. His projectiles are more damaging than his 2000s counterpart, so choose this Godzilla if you want to space well. This armadillo abomination is Anguirus. He's the defensive powerhouse of this game. See the spikes on his back? When Anguirus blocks, he simply turns around. The spikes cause damage to attackers, making him functionally a counter character. This has its weaknesses. For example, a grab or a sweep at his feet will smoke him, but generally this gives you a huge advantage in close quarters. Paired with his comparable tail normals to Godzilla and his lasting sweeps that put him in turnaround, you can do some real damage. From afar, well, his projectile game is kind of garbage unless you're in their face, in which case it can kind of stun sometimes. But range-wise, it's bad, and he has no alternate fire. 6B charge can help close the gap though, and his four-legged run can low profile some beams, but basically, he can get roasted by zoners like Ghidorah or MechaGodzilla. Up close, he's pretty godlike though. If you like counter characters, Anguirus is your guy. Megalon is the certified scrub killer of Destroy All Monsters. Why? Because of this. This guy can dig underground and hang out there, completely invincible, until he decides to come up or runs out of energy. You can either cancel the dig and go straight back to normal gameplay, or you can come up with a grab. His grab finishers also happen to do crazy damage, so pretty good option. My favorite thing about Megalon, though, is this insane Oki loop he can do. Though his beam sucks, he has a tap fireball that creates a little circle of fire on the ground. If enemies touch it, they go into an hot foot kind of animation, functionally stunning them. This hits Megalon too if he touches it, unless you dive kick in. That's right, you can hover in the air for a second with his baby bug wings and dive kick in. So essentially, you dig, grab, use his X throw to keep them close to you, back off to avoid their wake up, drop a fireball when their animation starts, hover, dive kick into knockdown, and loop that Oki again. If you enjoy being a menace, Megalon is your main. Godzilla 2000s is the Destroy All Monsters kin to Godzilla 90s Ryu. They have the exact same moveset, with the only minor difference being that 2000's physical moves hit harder, whereas 90's projectiles are better. Otherwise, the differences are aesthetic, as 2000's looks more like his movie counterpart and utilizes a red atomic breath instead of blue. Since they're the same, I'll take this moment to talk about a button I didn't mention for 90's. JX for GameCube players is an absolutely S-tier button. It slaps the hell out of flyers, its range is colossal, and it can be slightly delayed during the jump, which makes it a fantastic whiff punish. Crush wake-up moves, destroy lows, or shoot Rodan's annoying behind out of the sky with this incredible move. Gigan. Ugh. Gigan's a weird case in this game. On paper, he's super mobile. He has a teleport, which can be good for punishing beam charges or long-winded attacks. The problem is that from full screen, the teleport doesn't track. It also has a ton of recovery, so you have to punish correctly depending on what they did. Overall, it's a great idea with lackluster execution. His normals are also pretty slow, but they hit hard, unless you're fighting a mecha. This game's attacks are all considered blunt, edged, or energy. He has almost exclusively edged attacks, which the mecha characters do not care about at all, so he gets completely trounced by them. If you like overcoming polarizing matchups and unique mobility options, play Gigan, but be ready to be frustrated. If you like a zoner, King Ghidorah is a great option. Ghidorah is our first flyer of the roster. If you hold jump, he slowly flies around. In flight, he has an absolutely sick beam. It costs a decent chunk of meter, which flight also requires meter, but it's worth it because it is insanely fast and punishes building lifts or beam charges easily. He also has a dive kick which he can re-hover from, and a wind gust that pushes enemies away. On the ground, Ghidorah has powerful beam, but no tap fire. His buttons are a little slow, but they're pretty big, and so is his grab range. He also has a nifty tail grab for snatching up anyone who gets behind you. Gigan. He's certainly meter dependent, but if you manage well and play smart, he can be the top zoner option on the roster. Rodan is comparable to a character like Chip Zaneth from Guilty Gear. He has incredible mobility paired with a very squishy health bar. With Rodan, you'll want to use his super quick flight to kinda hit and run. His aerial buttons are strong, including a very quick air beam, and he can quickly switch between oppressive approaches or laming your enemy out, whatever the situation calls for. On the ground, his normals are quick, but don't pack too much punch. He does have something reminiscent of Kami's Spiral Arrow in his 8X, but don't expect it to win you the game. What he does have is an insanely fast grab with shocking range, so be sure to abuse that. If you're a fan of speedster types that excel at hit and run play, definitely pick Rodan. Destoroyah is the closest thing this game has to a bruiser. He's physically large and slow, but he hits like a truck. This is thanks to the energy katana normals tied to his fierce button. These moves cost energy, but they are massive and immensely damaging, allowing Destoroyah to melt life bars once he's close. But as is the bruiser's curse, he's not great from afar. His beam hits hard enough, but doesn't have much reach, and his walk and run speeds are super slow, so characters like Anguirus and Rodan can just run away constantly. He does, however, have a nifty little gravity well bomb for his tap fire projectile. When they're close enough to it, the bomb sucks them in for a knockdown, allowing Destoroyah to get in range and start the katana slaughter. If you like big fellas with high damage output, pick Destoroyah. I don't know what they were thinking with this one. In terms of movesets, MechaGodzilla shares 95% of his moves with regular Ghidorah. The primary difference is that MechaGodzilla takes double damage from energy moves like beams. Sounds bad, right? Well, let me explain how they miserably failed at balancing this. First, he completely ignores weak attacks. Tanks them. They do nothing but make a metal sound, and he can swing in the middle of them. It's like passive guard point. Also, if you're about to get charge beamed, just block. He has an energy force field that costs meter, but also restores your health when it's blocking energy attacks. Oh, and for good measure, he has a tap fire missile that both stuns enemies and drains their entire energy meter. The whole thing. So basically, you have all these wild mechanics added to a godlike zoner, and the only negative is extra beam damage, which hardly matters anyway, because he drains meter and can heal from beams. I don't think I need to further justify why this should be your main. The boss monster. MechaGodzilla kinda does it all. He's another all-arounder pick, like Godzilla 90s and Godzilla 2000. His normals don't quite have the same reach, but he makes up for it with his more comprehensive kit. MechaGodzilla has missiles as his tap fire, and they do crazy damage. His I-beams are also really good, he has flight, and he can use his jet boosters to push enemies away from him. Up close, his normals are a diverse split of slow, hard-hitting moves and quicker checks. You have some freedom with this character to play him how you want. If you like a versatile mixed bag of options, and you love a good villain, you can't go wrong with MechaGodzilla. So this game doesn't have a proper command grab grappler, but Orga is easily the closest thing. His buttons are big and slow, and he moves pretty slow, but once he lands a grab, it's party time. His kick variant grab does a pile driver that puts him at good spacing, but his fierce variant is where the party really starts. If there's nothing on the ground to break, no buildings or trains, this grab ground bounces. From there you can get some nasty juggle combos into huge damage. Technically, all monsters can juggle from wall bounces, but Orga's the only one who can do it from the middle of the screen. Pair that with some WWE reminiscent jump moves, a short range stun blast, and a decent beam, and you have yourself a pretty solid character. Just watch out for Destoroyah, that matchup is rough. Grappler mains, definitely choose Orga. Alright y'all, so those are the characters for the American GameCube version of Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. I hope this inspired you to revisit this janky classic and helped you decide who to play when you inevitably do play it. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to sub the channel and like the video to help support, and I will catch you next time.